All right. So, my last how many years that I've been around this earth and what I was raised with was not to be pigeonholed. I mean, yeah, I had some kind of religion I was raised around, but it wasn't like, I don't know, it wasn't like I was so devout, okay? Because there was just so much going on that I couldn't see myself even practicing a religion. Though when I was in basic training, they asked you if, well, they said Sunday is a day to pray to whoever God you want to pray to or whatever. And so I claimed Judaism when I was in basic training. And so then, and I was, I mean, so then Sundays at basic training when everyone else had to go, was going to church, and I went to the Jewish community center in the area over there in San Antonio. We got to eat candy and make phone calls and do a bunch of stuff that maybe others weren't doing. And so I got to meet some other people that were in basic training that came from maybe Israel or other places, and they enlisted into the Air Force at the time. And so that was really my only connection to my Jewish religion besides growing up with all the different holidays and stuff. So then it was me exploring every single religion, political thought process, culture, and I wasn't even groomed for any specific job. So it was going from job to job to job to job, family to family, maybe boyfriend to boyfriend, friend to friend. And so my life has been a compilation of so many religions, belief systems, political lifestyles, family lifestyles, and family dynamics, and just different people. And that's essentially what your world is. That's who the architects are of your society. They are so many storylines that you have to keep up with. I mean, you don't have to, but if you want to survive the world that you live in, that is full of all the different hybridized religions, you have to know which storyline you're in at any given moment. And remember, they said we're in the fourth turning. We've had so many years to be in one storyline. Let's say the worshiping of the calf. When I discovered yesterday the split in the Jewish religion, because I was raised Jewish and it was Reform, then there's Orthodox, and then there is other Jewish religions, and maybe conservative, and then there's the Hebrews, and then there's Jews for Jesus, then you have the Jehovah's Witnesses, and then you have the Yah people, or Yahweh, and I realized that that was a split in what I saw, like when I was hanging out with the Hebrews early on in the J world, because they were surrounding me. They were like, oh gosh, yes, this and that. And they were talking their scripture, and I'm not really that involved with Bible stuff or even Jewish scripture or Christian scripture or Jehovah's scripture. So I'm like, okay, is this the Jewish religion? I just never was connected to it. I just seen it when I was a kid, but no, it was really, so I was like, okay. And then I learned about the stories when I was a kid in Sunday school about worshiping the golden calf and worshiping money and worshiping this, and you're not supposed to. But in the 80s, people were worshiping the golden calf. That's what they were doing. In the 80s, it was all about wealth and connections and collecting baubles and chasing after material things. It was like, okay, so there's Jewish people who chase after, who are conservative or who are Reform or who are Orthodox, and and there's a segment that chase after the wealth, and they invest in the stock market, and they're just about just collecting money and money. I'm just like, but isn't that a sin? Isn't that a sin to worship the golden calf? Wasn't that like something, wasn't that the violation that when Moses went up to go get the 10 Commandments and he saw all the Israelites were worshiping the golden calf? And then you hear some of the atrocious stories that when they worshiped the golden calf, then Moses got so mad and he got people to go melt that calf down and then pour the molten gold down the throats of those who were worshiping the calf. And I'm just like, oh my God, that's so crazy. But I wouldn't doubt that it happened. Things were really crazy back then. So I'm like, okay, so I haven't remembered these stories, and then I'm looking, and then I'm now involved with all these religions on my Facebook with the J world, and then people are like, oh, invest in crypto, invest in gold, invest in silver, and they're all Hebrew. Oh, and they're taking all their herbs and extracts and supplements and detoxes, having a bunch of children. And I'm thinking about then the Passover. And then of course Passover, yeah, okay, the Jewish religion and the Egyptians, but then I'm like, well, if these people are Jewish or Hebrew or I don't even know what, and they're taking all their supplements and pills and powders, and these frequencies are so insane, they're going to be subject to the same frequencies. Why aren't they figuring out how to release the demons and build up their body and stop taking the antibiotics and developing more monsters? And I don't know. And so I'm just so confused. Then I realized, okay, we're literally in the Rosicrucian. There are so many different turnings. Like we're in the fourth turning. And this fourth turning is now like the Old Testament. It's like Genesis/Exodus. It's now releasing the demon. It's like saying, okay, if you don't let those enslaved microbes go, or the enslaved people in your body, mind, and spirit, in your house, in your world, and you're trapping people in your world because of whatever, because you need them, you need their energy, you need their work, you need their material goods. So it's a type of enslavement. Well, then if you don't set those people free, then you have the 10 plagues. The 10 freaking plagues. And so then I'm thinking about October 4th, October 11th, and even between now and who knows when that the firstborn, or symbolically, the children are going to be sacrificed on some level through the frequencies. And every single person on this earth will be subject to that, not just the Gentiles favoring the Jews, because you can't tell who's a Jew or a Gentile when it comes to biochemistry. You have to be the one to now take on another thought process that then works off of all the other foundational religions. That's what Rosicrucian is. Rosicrucianism is. It's the evolution of all of the religions. And it has to still follow along with all the different laws of your society. Not necessarily the laws of each specific religion, because they always change. But you have laws of your society that's based upon every single religion out there. Whether it's Jesus Christ, Christianity, or Judaism, or Hebrew, or Allah, or Hinduism, Buddhism. And so, oh my gosh. And I'm like, okay, now I get it. Because even when I like, when I was 19 and I could have gone, I did go to different colleges, but somebody in my household, when I was a roommate, I brought in so many different, I didn't bring in, I moved in with international people. They were people that I was introduced to by one of my friends who's in the military, and then she went to DVC. In DVC, Diablo Valley College, she had friends that she went to school with, and then they all got a room together, or an apartment together. And so it was German, and it was Lebanese, and other, different people. And at 19 years old, when you're now being introduced to international people, and they're a few years older, and then they get involved in things that are like the things of the day, like landmark education, which was one of the most influential courses after all that crap in my childhood. That was like Rosicrucian, because their whole tenet was to take a little bit, like the quotes and the tools, technology, the concepts, the ideas from different religions, different spiritualities, all of that, and develop a course and seminar series to then wow people. And that's no different than the 1970s. The things that I joined and had like some kind of self-help type of thing, that was all derivative of the 1970s, when they were doing all the different revolutions, the Cultural Revolution, which is really, when you think about it, that was China merging all the dynasties together. But it was the Cultural Revolution, Sexual Revolution, the the drugs, and then developing new religions, new ways of doing things, and massive amounts of experimentation. And so that was the foundation. So I figured out that was, now today when I look at Rosicrucianism, because I knew in my book, we're in the Georgia Guidestones, I'm in the conspiracy world. This book touches upon the Rosicrucians. I knew the medical holistic system was part of the Rosicrucian alchemy. And I knew that there was also Kabbalism, and there was other types of religions that were opposing each other, because you had to have balance. You couldn't have one without the other, and you had to learn how to jockey between the two. And sometimes you might have 10 years of one religion, and you wouldn't know it because it's not really a religion. You just see, like, these little symbols, and maybe it could be like Shiva with all the different arms in the Hindu religion that was superimposed on a building. Like, you've seen that in one of those in the New Year's celebrations. And so you wouldn't really, I mean, if you were part of the whole architects, you would know that each turning would represent a type of spirituality, type of religion that would be appropriate at the time. And so, of course, the 80s, the 90s, 2000s was a lot of, yes, worshiping the golden calf, developing so much innovation, free money, well, very easy access to money. And then you saw even there's just the new stars that were being developed off the assembly line, when you think about it, like Disney and Hollywood and stuff. And so then yesterday, when I figured out that the Passover, when you think about the frequencies, and they're passing over your house, and some people will die, some people will live. I just looked at, or I saw somebody through my curtains, and I could see through the houses, in between the houses, the other street. And I heard sirens, and I saw then these ambulance people were walking up somebody's house and bringing somebody down. And that was like yesterday afternoon. I'm like, geez, these frequencies are really kicking people's asses. People are dropping like flies. And so some will survive these frequencies that pass over their house. Others don't. And then you hear about the rapture. Okay. So then I figured out yesterday, after now realizing that we are experiencing all the religions in the world, and they are somewhere more represented than others during each turning. What's the fourth turning of an 80-year cycle? We're in the fourth turning. I said that in my book. We're in the fourth turning of an 80-year cycle of a new industrial revolution, evolution, whatever you want to call it. And we're in like Genesis, Exodus, Days of Noah. We're in the Georgia Guidestones, and any other religion you can think of. Okay, so Passover triggers the rapture. Okay, and even the Jews out there who are celebrating Passover, they're going to be held accountable no different than the Egyptians back in the days of Exodus, when Pharaoh wouldn't allow the Jews to leave Egypt. Okay, so we casted the curse of the 10 plagues, and the last plague was the killing of the firstborn. And that's when I said the Mezuzah was the representation that this is a Jewish household. And so Passover triggers a rapture. When the angel of death passes over your house, do the people in your house have the body, mind, and spirit to survive the frequency, angel, light of death? Or will it be the rapture, and you think all sinners are left behind, thus giving you absolution for not surviving the frequencies, angel, light, angel of death? And so you see the Christians are like, hey, if I'm leaving, if I get caught up in the rapture and I'm gone and you're here, it means I'm now the chosen ones to go to the light and over to wherever, and those left on earth are here to suffer the trials and tribulations of life, which they're not wrong, because so in order to live, you have to suffer a certain amount. How much? Well, it's all relative to so many different factors. But doesn't mean that you suffer so astronomically forever, because remember me, now looking at me, and I had to suffer the last 7 years of pushing out all the demons, and I'll go into that later. But now the suffering from all the different frequency changes is less and less, if almost basically non-existent. The only thing that I have to do now is go to sleep. If I feel like there's a frequency and a massive growth, I might have a few hives. Like I have one hive on my thigh, and that's about it this morning. I have a few dreams. I dreamt that I was choking this morning, but that was it, and it was fine. And I survived the choking. So you can Google that. It means being fully into the experience. Okay, so I am fully into whatever experiences I'm experiencing right now. And so that's the extent of it. I'm not suffering. There's no pain. I'm pretty clear-headed. And so eventually there won't be that much suffering, but you have to go through the process. You have to earn your place on this earth. And people have been given everything. They've been given absolution. They've been given shortcuts. They've been given everything they could possibly want. And when you're given everything, there's payment to that. And people don't have what it takes to pay back. And so they pay with their life. That's human sacrifice. It's not that someone's just arbitrarily saying, okay, you are going to go into the volcano, which might have happened maybe 1,000,000 years ago. But now you've been given so many opportunity to change the way you do things. You've been given everything under the sun. You've been given so much access to knowledge and opportunity to change. So that way you don't have to be sacrificed, that you'll pay your dues for being given everything that you have right now. And people are like, no, I'm not changing, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not, and so then they are sacrificed through their own lack of change because they don't have what it takes in their body to pay back what was given to them, even if they earned it through their job. When someone gives you a job, they give you a family, they give you access to food and water and air and vacations and all that, and you have the capability to earn that, they've given you the capability to earn your way into this world, it's still somebody giving you something. And then you don't know how to change, you don't know how to give back, and you don't want to ever, that's when people get sacrificed because they don't have enough of the currency in their body to pay back what the system has given them as far as even the capability to earn a great living. That's why I was so jealous of the men in my world when I was going through my bullshit, because I'm like, you guys are able to go to work every single fucking day, be so sharp, and make all that money and play the system and get access to all the loopholes and make your millions of dollars and buy the nice cars and the fancy houses and all the lobster you can eat. And I'm here suffering from all the fucking evolution. I don't know how the hell. I was so jealous for so many years of the men in the world because I knew women had to deal with so many different things, but even some of the women in my world didn't have to deal with what I had to deal with. But I wasn't even worried about them because it was all, it was a matter of how many women were going to be dealing with PMS and pregnancy and sickness. And so it was the men that I was so jealous of. Okay? And so back to what I'm saying here, the Mezuzah, which was that symbol that was rectangular, that had the scrolls in it, that was put on the door, on the door jamb. The Mezuzah may have saved the Jews in the land of Egypt, but now everyone will be equally exposed to the angel light of death or frequency. And will you be strong enough for the change in climate or Passover / Rapture? Okay, so rapid growth depletes your resources. When you think about it, which is why all foods are so important. And that you must understand you have to make room for the new growth in your body. And see, that's the thing. When people are taking so many of their antibiotics and all the different remedies, okay, yeah, you're getting a lot of exponential growth. That's the thing about remedies and all the positive and negative that are coming into their body and trying to attack disease, is that you're producing so much new growth, but you have to be able to manage that growth. You have to release the excessive growth. It's like collecting so much money. You sit on a bunch of money or a bunch of baubles, and then you attract parasites. You attract so much diversity because they're all wanting to feed off all of your resources. And so the same thing, when you hold so many resources inside, okay, yeah, you can call it obesity on one level, and then you can also call it the aging out process because those resources are sucking the life out of you. Like King Midas. When people have so many little offspring in their body, like King Midas, that wealth then sucks the life out of them. And so I'm not read all this. Okay, I'll leave that alone. So I know that was a little bit of a repeat. And so I wanted just to kind of to give you that side of it right there. I wanted to recap yesterday, but I'm not going to recap all of that because you can read that from yesterday, but I thought maybe that would be appropriate, but it is and it isn't. So when I said about let my people go, that's when I had the aha moment. Meaning let the trauma go, then the people resist, thus using all the herbs and remedies and detoxes, and then the angel of death comes around and releases those who refuse to set free the demons in their body. Okay? And so when you think about the whole Exodus, that's what the aha moment was yesterday, was Exodus. Is that all of you are the pharaohs to your body and to someone in your life who you actively resist them changing, tempting them to stay stuck in the being cured in their politics, religion, and science. And some of you will not allow your friends and family or your mom and dad to change because you're so afraid they're going to die from changing. And you have a right to be scared for them because maybe they are too far gone, and maybe those precious moments that they have today and they're in peace and lucid and not going through the writhings of just, change is what you want. And it's really more for you versus them. Maybe they want to feel the pain, but maybe you don't. And so that's the thing. And can a person make that choice? Well, they have to have that situation supported by doctors and people because, again, you're not equipped to deal with that. So yeah, people are kind of left between a rock and a hard place. And so all of you are pharaohs to your body and to someone in your life who you actively resist them changing, tempting them to stay stuck and being cured in their politics, religion, and science. Sickness is the body attempting to free the slaves in the body. And people actively stop the body from freeing the slaves, the children. And then the children rebel. And the angel of death destroyed both the parent and the child. Oh my God. Exodus was a story of people's refusal to set free their demons and release trauma. And when you refuse to set free the enslaved life in your house, body, mind, and spirit, you get the 10 plagues. And so I was like, oh my God, we are in Exodus. Oh my God, demons, devil, Satan equals accountability. We all are demons to those who we help resist setting themselves free, aiding and abetting someone else's enslavement, even enslaving the microbes in their body, because you're giving them things to disable their immune system from releasing, and thus also developing demons simultaneously. And so when you enslave your friends and family, force them to assimilate to your death culture, they will be your undoing, and you will be their undoing. Angels of death. The part of the Red Sea was a body allowing itself to release the enslavement, the trauma, the programming. Many of you are refusing to release the programming, and you're making the demons inside of you strong with all of your detoxes and your remedies and supplements and herbs and extracts, and you are believing whatever someone told you through the medical holistic system. You're still stuck in Egypt, dealing with the angel of death. You chose to enslave yourself. And then there was that, let my people go down Moses way down in Egypt land, tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. And so, yeah. And that was from Louis Armstrong back in the 1930s. And so when you think about the Rosicrucian order, okay, so then you think about, when I talk about landmark education back when I was 19, and actually it's called Landmark Worldwide because they had to change for whatever reason. But it's called Landmark Worldwide, and they're out of San Francisco. And they are like Rosicrucian. They take from so many different cultures and belief systems and spirituality. And so the Rosicrucian order is the balance. They are the compilation of all the religions in the world. You must coexist. And see, those were the words coexist that some of the born-again Christians that I was hanging out with early on in the J world, they didn't like the word coexist. They said it was satanic. They said it was just so crazy. And people are against Freemasonry. And I see people who are very Christian, who have developed pages against Freemasonry. They became the people that they thought were doing something to them. See, when you become the very thing that you are against, and I see that in some of the J world, they're not even in the J world, there was people I hung out with way back when I was exploring the right-wing, pro-Trump, born-again Christian, anti-Freemasonry type of stuff. Because I had to fall into that to explore it, to understand it. And then I see them developing these pages. And then they post screenshots of them private messaging someone and saying that they are Satan, they are this, they are horrible people. And then the person responds back, the Freemason responds back, says, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, the Freemason didn't do anything to that person. But that person purposely, hunted them, seeked them out, and threw a grenade into their world. That's what the system is trying to get rid of. Those who purposely hunt other humans spiritually. If given the chance, that person might even hurt that person if they saw them wearing a certain outfit. They would hurt that person. Just like they did, that's like throwing a pie at Bill Gates' face way back when. They thought Bill Gates is destroying the world. Not necessarily. But when people have those radicalized belief systems and they hunt humans like that, that's some scary shit. That is some scary shit. And so when you see people do that on the internet and they're proud of it, I was in that world. I experienced it. I even felt it. Because when I first came here and I was in that anti-Freemasonry stuff, right? And I came here to Ohio from Florida and I was way deep into that. And I'm looking, oh, look, there's a Masonic temple. Oh, look, there's the G. There's this, everybody. And so somebody said, like, well, you see everyone that, that has that kind of G symbol is all Freemason and you are going to go and be discriminatory. And I'm like, yeah. I'm so ashamed of how I was back in 2014. Oh my God, I'm so fucking ashamed. But when you get radicalized and you don't know any better and you're full of your own demons and things that just, oh my God, that made you just so angry and you can't even pinpoint where the anger comes from. And everybody's the enemy, and someone gives you an enemy, and you read about the enemy, and they're just radicalizing you, and then you become it, and then it's like if you don't figure out that that's another demon that was developed, then you turn into the very demon that you thought somebody else was, and they didn't do shit to you. That's how fast religion can destroy people. That's how fast people destroy other people, just by the belief system that has been taken to such an extreme. Now you see why we're in 1984? Now you see why we have surveillance society? Because I recognize how I was by even looking at that page where it says Freemason is evil. And then she's actually approaching the other person. Why did I say she? Because I know who's running that page. I'm not going to say it. If she watches this, she'll know who I'm talking about. I don't have anything against her. I just know where I was right where you were before. And I get it. I'm not saying you're wrong or right. You are where you are. You think what you think, and people do. And oh my God. And so they are the compilation of all the religions of the world. Rosicrucian. You must coexist or treat yourself out of existence. You always had the choice. And each turning will represent some version of some religion that is out there. And you have to be discerning to know which religion is being represented and survive the storyline. Okay? So there's a million storylines out there, and they all each come up at different times. And sometimes they come up simultaneously, and you won't know which one's more aligned or the other, because you have to know all the different storylines. And they're all relevant, whether it's, Epic of Gilgamesh to, Cinderella to the Bible story, or Jehovah's Witness, or New International Version of the Bible, or the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Jews for Jesus. I mean, oh gosh. I mean, and it does take a long time, and sometimes it's impossible to read everything, but you have to understand that no matter what religion you believe in, there's still a common theme. It's good versus evil. And everything is all relative to what they think is good, what they think is evil. And when you're using things like antibiotics and surgeries and claiming one side or the other, the blind spot will always be there. And then you have a war, and that's called mutually assured destruction. When you have a Jehovah's Witness and a Gentile and a Jew and a Jewish person and a Freemason and something else, and they're all lobbing grenades at each other, but I don't think the Freemasons are lobbing grenades at you. They're giving you choices. But you have all the people who are taking a side in whatever, it doesn't matter what it is, and they're so entrenched in it and so blinded. Then that's mutually assured destruction, because you'll be caught unaware. You have a major blind spot. And so you'll walk into the lion's den and not realize that all of your remedies and surgeries and detoxes and all the having a million children and eating organic and thinking that all food's poison, and you don't know both sides of the story, you'll walk right into the lion's den, and you won't even survive like Daniel did. You'll get chewed up and spit out. And that's why people die. Even all the different religions that say, oh gosh, they're trying to kill us, blah, blah. And then they keep blaming that someone, no, you destroyed yourself. You fed yourself all those stories, and you believed all those stories that you even made up yourself, and you withheld food from yourself, and you gave yourself antibiotics. Oh my gosh, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay? And so you always had a choice, and each turning will represent some version of some religion that is out there, and you have to be discerning to know which religion is being represented and survive that storyline. It was okay to worship the golden calf the last 247 years. Now it's not okay. I mean, you can, but it might compromise your future. Some people cannot afford to worship the golden calf. Others can. Do you have enough discernment to know if you can afford to worship the golden calf? Or is that golden calf sucking the life out of you? Surviving every storyline will save you, which is why you must understand all the arguments. That's why I said understand both sides, not just one side. Choosing to blind yourself to one or more storylines is your blind spot, and you will walk into the lion's den. You are run by hybridized religions, multiple religions in this world. They run everything you do. They are the architects of your system. And so hypothetically, I mean, I'm saying, hey, if you have 10 religions, it could be a lot more than that. It could be 100, 200. Okay? But if you have 10 religions, let's use short round numbers, running your world, running everything that you do, it does not make sense to only believe one religion out of 10. If you're even aware of all the, but I'm aware, I've been in all the different religions, whether it was the Nibiru side, the Ascension people, all the anti-V, pro-V, all the anti-GMF. I mean, there are so many religions that are for and against every single fucking element out there. You think about how many elements on the periodic tables and how many life forms out there, how many different humans and cultures. And there's like by the thousands. you will have 1,000 religions that's for and against salt. You'll have thousands of religions that are for and against sodium. You'll have 1,000, a million religions for and against water. Do you see exactly what's going on now? And so you had to understand all the religions that are running your world. And a lot of these religions oppose each other because you had to balance out everything. You're like, oh my God, hyponatremia, hypenatremia. It's like, okay, there's one worshiping or demonizing hypo and one worshiping demonized hyper, and then you get then a million offshoots. Just like Christianity, a million offshoots. Judaism, a million offshoots. Buddhism, a million offshoots. Hinduism, a million offshoots. Oh, hell. Aliens, 1,000,000,001 offshoots. You could not be intolerant. Your intolerance to everything or anything will be your undoing. Right now, people are trapped into walking into the lion's den and they don't even know it. Or they deny it. It's happening and they claim to know the Bible. But the Bible has so many versions. You have to know all the versions and be open to knowing all the versions. And it doesn't matter if you believe it. Those versions are lessons in the world that you live in and are actively being applied today, just like numerology. That is also actively being applied today. You couldn't be against the horoscopes. Now remember, people are saying, oh, the horoscopes are so satanic. Oh my God. But then horoscopes are about numerology because you have the Chinese, the Vietnamese, the Western, the Eastern, whatever. And it's all about numbers. And then people are like, oh, look, 9/11. Oh gosh, 9/11, 3/11. Look, 9, look, 11. They're posting the time of day. Look at 11/11. That's all numerology. And some of these people say that numerology and horoscopes are all satanic, but yet they are posting numerology on their Facebook and they are Christian. You see what I'm saying? Even those that say, okay, numerology and horoscopes are satanic, also practice the things that they say are satanic, but really Satanism and devil and demon are all accountability. But again, that's still another religion, okay, another thought process. But to someone in the born-again Christian world, it's like it's a meaning to them that they have developed around it and they're not afraid to post it. But then when you go in another context, they're like, oh God, horoscopes are satanic. And I even fell into that too for a minute. But here's the thing. I was introduced to my Vietnamese religion with a bunch of Vietnamese people, and people are great. Yeah, they have their religions, but it's not really where I don't really feel a connection to the Vietnamese culture. I really don't. Because even in the old world, still the old world, there's still old world values that I'm just like, I don't adopt that. And even the new world values as far as the Vietnamese culture, with the rampant capitalism and so much chasing after beauty and wealth and baubles and social capital and fame and fortune. I'm not even there either. Okay. And that's all over the Asian culture. I mean, nothing wrong with it. It's just, that's not where I'm at. So, and then yes, the Vietnamese culture is run by the Vietnamese horoscopes. You're the tiger, you're the bear, you're the dog, you're this, you're that. And I did fall into that for many years. Okay. But that's part of just everything else. I mean, everything is all part of each other. It's just one aspect. That's why you see America celebrating, the Chinese New Year, the Jewish New Year, the Jewish Days of Atonement, repent during, was it the Easter or around those times where you're having to deny yourself. I mean, fasting and all that. So it's like, so America is the melting pot. It is Rosicrucian. America is Rosicrucian. That's what, right? When you think about it, America is Rosicrucian. That's the world you belong to. And you're then only believing your side of it. You're Republican, you're Democrat, you're, whatever your religion. But you're in America that is Rosicrucian, that has taken from so many different cultures, taken the concept, the best parts of each culture and developed a context, developed a thought process. That's America. America is Rosicrucianism. Holy shit. And so you couldn't be against horoscopes. The microbes in your body are desperate to be released, and you stop it. The kids and the family and dogs are sick, wanting to evolve, and you are actively stopping the animal from evolving or stopping the person from evolving or leaving, and you are actively stopping yourself from evolving or leaving broken conditions. You are Daniel in the lion's den. However, he survived. Will you? No, because you believe everyone should die, including yourself. and then you still justify it. Really? Okay. And so even the Hebrews may not survive the lion's den because they fell from grace when they kept worshiping idols. You trapped the beast within you. You had to release the demons, not look for remedies and absolution, dying, reproducing all the time. If you are Hebrew in the Yah world, when you idolize remedies and surgeries and herbs and supplements and detoxes and even diets, you are still stuck in the land of Egypt, worshiping the golden calf, investing in the gold, silver, crypto, gambling, and worshiping currency. Had to have been a sin. Idolizing Wall Street and the bull, wow, a sin. It was. But again, that was just all part of the culture. You know, you had the Yah people, you know, wanting to invest in all this stuff, and I get that. Then there's the Old Testament, where it's Genesis and Exodus, the old way. And so even those had representation. Right now, we are in the Old Testament Genesis and Exodus. And those who are worshiping Wall Street and crypto and investing in all these different things, hoping to get rich someday, well, you've seen the rug be pulled out from under the crypto people, from even some of these banking systems, from so many things like the mortgage crisis. You're seeing, the rug being pulled out from under everybody who was all worshiping the almighty dollar. Okay, and when you're worshiping the almighty dollar and social capital and material wealth, you're not going to be able to survive the frequencies. Now the environment is so accelerated that whatever you're doing is going to be accelerated to the nth degree, and whatever your intention is that you want to, die someday, and even all your diseases that are lurking that could have had a chance to leave the body through slower conditions, we're going to then be, it's going to grow even rapidly, even more so in this environment. You won't have a chance to get ahead. And so the environment is going to determine your survivability, and then also you figure out, hey, now it's not so much worshiping the golden calf anymore. Now it's time to pull back and and pay your fucking dues, I guess. The golden calf, the adoration of the golden calf, picture from the Hortus Delicarium of Herod of Landsberg. According to the Bible, the golden calf was an idol, a cult image, made by the Israelites when Moses went up to the Mount Sinai. In Hebrew, the incident is known as, or the sin of the calf. It is first mentioned in the book of Exodus. I remember that story. It was told to me in Sunday school. When Moses saw that, he threw down the tablets so they were broken. And then he went and melted that calf down and poured the molten gold right down the throats of those who were worshiping the golden calf. So that's some pretty aggressive stuff. And so bull worship, then you look at Wall Street, look at the bull on Wall Street. Remember that? The bull worship was common in many cultures. In Egypt, whence, according to the Exodus narrative, the Hebrew had recently come, the Apis bull was a comparable object to worship, which some believe the Hebrews were reviving in the wilderness. Alternatively, some believe Yahweh, which is where you get the Yah people. And they're saying, praise Yah. I've seen that. I was like, I didn't understand it because I never heard that in my Jewish religion. I would go to a temple. No one said praise Yah. I'm just like, what is this? I just was so fascinated by the people, the Hebrews that are on my Facebook. And so they're like, some believe Yahweh, the national god of the Israelites, were associated with or pictured as a calf, bull deity through the process of religious assimilation and syncretism. Among the Canaanites, some of whom would become the Israelites, the bull was widely worshipped as the lunar bull, as the creature. And so symbolism, what does the golden calf symbolize? It was a symbol of virility and strength associated with the Canaanites, god El, and such idolatry would persist in the period of the divided monarchy. King Jeroboam I of the northern kingdom of Israel commissioned 2 golden calves for the sanctuaries of Yahweh in Bethel and Dan to serve as the Lord's attendants. So then now I figured out the split between the Jewish religion with all the different Jewish denominations. So now I understand where the Hebrews come from, the people who say praise Yah, because I didn't understand. Because I never saw it when I went to temple. We never said praise Yah. There was no mention of, when you think about Yah, it was Elohim, it was Adonai, it was God, but it was never Yahweh. Though I did learn Yahweh in my junior high. I think I was in 7th grade or 8th grade. I think I was in 8th grade. And Mr., I forget his name, he was Japanese teacher, and he was talking about, we learning about archaeology or modern religion or something, or ancient religions, and he was talking about Yahweh, and I'm like, Yahweh? And then right there, then I hear people saying Yah. What is Yah? Same thing as Jah, like Jehovah. So I couldn't tell if it was Hebrew, and they're saying Yah, and then you have those who are Jehovah who are saying Jah or That's what I'm saying. Religion is such a crazy thing. It is such an insidious thing. And so, yeah, so now I understand religion. I understand the religion from the context of the Rosicrucian, which is America. America is Rosicrucian. And then Silicon Valley, which is why they have the Rosicrucian Museum. Silicon Valley is the engineering. Okay? And so then you look at, but then, even with the Rosicrucian, you can be a member of the Rosicrucian Museum, not so much Rosicrucian, but you can be a member of the Rosicrucian Museum and contribute to them doing archaeological digs and findings and education. But then you have the Illuminati, like I see like on my Facebook, there's some like the Rothschilds, and there's like you can belong to be an Illuminati member and you pay your dues, and I'm like, nah. I mean, there's, and I have, like, I'm following some version of a Rothschild. I don't even know if there's really them or somebody else who's, I don't even know. You don't know who people are behind, their accounts on Facebook, but they do have some interesting things to say. But for me, it's not about belonging to anything where you're paying dues. For me, I'm not paying dues to any kind of religion or belief system. I pay my taxes. I pay, for whatever goods and services that I get. But as far as any religion or belief system, in my opinion, I don't need to pay dues to anyone. I contribute through my awareness of following the changes that are going on and helping people in my world, if they choose to get on the track of some kind of change, and letting them know that they could probably survive it if they have the right infrastructure in their world. What's right, it's all up to them how they figure it out. But it's not me belonging to some religion and paying dues to be an Illuminati, okay? It's either you understand what's going on and you survive it, or you don't. Again, I don't worship anybody. I don't even worship myself. I just become a contributing member of society, and I understand all the religions out there. Some people want to pay their dues to be an Illuminati. Fine, go for it. If you want to pay your dues to belong to a Jewish congregation, do that. To tithe in your Catholic or some kind of church, go do what you got to do. Okay? So I'm not knocking anyone doing that. For me, that's not where my head's at. I don't need to have that kind of support. I understand everything that's going on. Now it's just surviving it. Okay? So I don't want people thinking they're like, oh, now Jillian's going to go join the Illuminati and pay her dues and go call that WhatsApp number and now become a card-carrying member of the Illuminati. No. Rosicrucianism is understanding all the concepts out there. Freemasonry is actually something that you actively go and apply for to belong to that, which I've read about that. I don't need to be a Freemason. I understand what they're doing, and I'm not hunting them or anti-Freemason. No. They have their own tenets and their own, rules and regulations and rituals and traditions, and I think that's great, because that's has helped given America the footing that it's on, so we can get to the next level of evolution. But again, it's not for me to say that Christianity is bad, Judaism is bad, Freemasonry is bad. No, there's all the best parts of every single culture is what comprises now the world, and most of all America. That's what America was founded upon. It's the melting pot. Okay? And that's what you have to understand. When you're part of America, it was giving you so much stuff, and even the West, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Western Europe, okay? You've been given so much access to so many different privileges and lifestyles and belief systems. And you're given a chance to even change. And you don't even have to give up your religion per se, but just be tolerant to those that may have a different thought process. They may have the opposing side, but why would it be opposing? Because what they're doing is like holding you accountable. How is that? Because if you're resisting somebody, then there's a reason why. Because you don't want to look at what you have to also face in your world. that's what I'm saying. Facebook is a mirror to everybody holding you accountable for what you say, what you do, how you feel, what you believe in. And you have to be really articulate to be able to see that there's nothing really to resist. It's assimilation. And to defend even what you believe in without destroying somebody else. And so then this whole thing with Russell Brand, okay? Now, I listened to some of the videos that some people put out there that followed his world ever since he started with either his podcast or even before that, when he was a mover and shaker. I even, in the conspiracy world, the whole Illuminati stuff, they were talking about Russell Brand and Katy Perry and how he was Katy Perry's handler and all that stuff, and he's Illuminati and whatever. Because that was the time that I was in, was exploring Hollywood and the whole all-seeing eye and the models and all of that and the human trafficking and people taking a side against Democrat, Republican, and oh my gosh, there's so much. And so now, so when you look at what he had to deal with, that he was raised by some brutal people, okay, that may have done some crazy stuff. He may have been introduced to sex at an early age, maybe allegedly done some stuff with animals or whatever. And it's just like, oh God, craziness. And so then he acts out those proclivities and then pulls back and then redirects. But he's going through his own bullshit. And that's the thing. Sometimes these kids out there and people and adults have been raised with some pretty brutal stuff that wasn't managed correctly because they weren't supposed to be managed correctly. They were part of all the experiments back in the 1960s, 70s. Okay, so you see people who are like my age and or a little bit younger, and they're now getting older and going through and rebelling and going through their own process of coming to terms with whatever they were raised with. Some of them are going off the deep end and have done some horrible stuff in their adulthood. Like literally, I did some stupid shit when I was a teenager, and I got straight very quickly, made some mistakes in my life, but nothing that would put me in jail or have anyone be like, oh, look what you did. Nothing that no one else has done. Like, have a few boyfriends, got into stupid shit with some boyfriends, but nothing like that would put me in jail again or have anything hold against me. Because you make mistakes. You don't see predators for what they are until they're right in your face. Okay, and then you get out, and you get out gracefully, legally, and you learn your lessons, never ever to get in that situation ever again. But I was very honorable when you think about it. In every single one of my ventures and intentions, it was just how it came out might have seemed like it wasn't, because there's so many things that were going on in my world. And so when I did the whole J world and they were scrutinizing me, there's nothing in my background. I never went to jail for drugs or alcohol, never had any kind of court case against me per se, when you think about it. But I was really trying to do the best that I could to survive, finding the career, finding the right husband or the right boyfriend. And so never brutalized anybody, never had it in for anyone, never hunted anyone, never took advantage of anyone. Really, when you think about it, I mean, yeah, you could say that getting student loans and all that could, and trying to make myself better would be like taking advantage of the system and on some level, which, okay. And so I have $60,000 of student loans that are right now sitting right there in my, and that's okay. Eventually those will get paid off. I have the rest of my life forever to pay off $60,000 of student loans. And I will eventually. Right now they're on deferment because my husband should not be tasked in paying those. I brought that into the marriage. It's not his job. And so, I will work with the government with that. But when you think about it, I really don't have anything for anyone to find and be like, oh, look who she is. But when you're a guy and you have such sexual proclivities to such a level, and sometimes even predatory, and even some women, okay, and they become so sexual, they go on OnlyFans, or they become prostitutes or strippers. And so they have a lot to face. I just had boyfriends and people that I was learning from. And so, hold that against me. No, it's actually helped me where I'm at today. And so will Russell Brand be able to stand up to the scrutiny of the system? The system has evidence of crimes. However, when will it come out? I experienced the trial by the media. I know what he's going through. Your past adulthood choices will come to surface once you challenge the system. When no one wants to expose Epstein's black book because no one wants to end up like Epstein. Okay, if you are honorable challenging the system, it will come out eventually. But you must do the work and prove yourself to the architects of the system, not your peers. See, when I talk to Facebook, I'm talking to the architects of the system. I'm talking to Facebook community standards. I'm talking to the architects of everything. The people that will hold you accountable. They're writing the stories about you. Dredging up stuff that you forgot if they want to embarrass you or make you defend yourself on some level, to distract the people from what you're saying and discredit you. Oh, believe me, the system can find ways to discredit people if they want. Everybody has skeletons. And so if you are honorable challenging the system, it will come out eventually. You must do the work and prove yourself to the architects of the system, not your peers. Your peers still refer to the architects, even when they resist the architects. Challenging the system is risky if you harbor skeletons. Those in glass houses shall not cast stones. All right, so those that came after me, well, I would not imagine that you have an exemplary past. But since you worked for the system wasn't going to expose anyone that was opposing me until they start challenging the system. So if you're going to challenge the system, you better be able to have a clean past on some level and be able to handle the scrutiny. And if you have a lot of skeletons in your closet, that's how they control people. And so, when you don't know that you're going to end up doing this, then they see who you really are from the past, right? So when you think about it, okay, so I didn't know I'd end up being like a conspiracy theorist and doing the whole J world. And if I was really just, fucked up and messed up in the head and all of that, and I was challenging the system in not the right way by saying, oh, they're poisoning you with all these things and there's no poison. But remember, I said, oh yeah, they're poisoning you. So they held my feet to the fire for many. Oh, look, you destroyed Bruce. Oh, look, you destroyed your dog. No, I didn't. And so then I had to really go deeper into why I'm challenging the system. And it wasn't for the things that I thought it was back in 2016. It was for things that I innately knew was not right. People didn't have to die someday. I don't think anyone should be going under the knife, no matter if you're under the influence or not. And I don't think we should be giving people antibiotics. And I understand why they're controlling reproduction carefully because of cancer and so many kids who are now going to be, suffering from deficiencies and when the climate changes. And so, yeah. So anyways, yeah, that's kind of, yeah. And so you had to have a pretty exemplary background to be able to challenge a system. Not that my system was not that my background was exemplary, but I owned up to every single thing. Owned up to everything. I told you why I didn't graduate high school. I told you everything about my background without completely demolishing my parents. I had to come to terms with all that. In order for me to even show you that I was credible, I had to tell you everything without destroying my parents and destroying my childhood. There was a reason why things were the way they were, and everything was done legally by scientists with a specific outcome. Because you see those who've been exposed to brutality in the movies and violence, and then they're brutalized at home, they turn into serial killers. They could be very smart like Charles Manson, but you saw how he ended up. He turned people into serial killers. He turned people into killers. Those girls that followed him. Okay? And so there is a method to the madness that was done, and sometimes some people had the method done to them without the nuance, without the what is it? So if I was raised with a little bit of harshness, brutality, but no vision of violence, whether sexual violence or any kind of violence, then that was okay. There was definitely a lot of programming that it was conflicting, so I had always something to go to hold me back from doing something stupid. But what did Russell Brand, what was he exposed to? Was he exposed to sexual violence and physical violence and brutality, which made him be who he is today? So maybe he was one experiment like Charles Manson, but not so brutal to where he would kill somebody, but up to a certain point. Because some people like looking at Charles Brand like, oh, or Russell Brand like, oh wow, he's like looks like Charles Manson, but Charles Manson was taken a step further. but Russell Brand wasn't. Okay? So you have to see how the programming works in all different people. Why some people turn into serial killers and why those don't. They just become serial rapists or brutalists, okay? And so you see the programming in people. And so even though, so for me to even to give myself credibility, I had to give you everything. I had to show you everything without destroying anyone in the process and understand it. So then when you understand your background and what was going on at the time and why, and knowing that the programming could have taken a really bad turn and ended up like a Charles Manson, you realize there was a reason why that the programming didn't end up like a Charles Manson, it ended up the way it was like today. So then you understand what the system is doing. Then you can't really get mad at the system. You have to understand what the system is doing and not resist it. Okay? And so you have to understand that the reason why there's accusations because Russell Brand was mischaracterizing Pfizer. Nothing is poison when you think about it. People have already laid the groundwork with every single remedy they ever did. All the different growths that happen, people have anyways, and they have different lifestyles. They want to encourage growth. They want to be on the drugs and all that stuff. And so if you're going to challenge the system incorrectly and you're not going to bother to do your research, then the system is going to hold your feet to the fire. And you have to be able to stand up to that. And is Russell Brand going to stand up to that? Just because he's exposing whatever government conspiracy, even then, you see who's falling into what camp. I'm not defending Russell Brand. I know what he went through. But he had heavier programming than I did. And it turned him into what he was back in his 20s and 30s. And now he's almost 50. And he's now going against the government because he's pissed. And he needs an outlet because he has such misdirected anger. And that's what I did the last couple of years. And I had to go and pull back. Is he going to pull back? Are you guys who are really aggressively resisting what's going on, are you going to pull back and understand what's going on? Those in glass houses shall not cast stones. Challenging the system is risky if you harbor skeletons. And so the J world was the catalyst, and it released the demons and activated your immune system. But you couldn't stay on the J juice forever. Okay, so now we're in this days of Noah. Water is going to be in lieu of fire, fire and water. Fire, water, and air, all the elements will be used as an aggressive way to clean the system. And then you'll be the one to determine if you're going to be cleaned out or not. And so that video about that water is the new fire, water is going to be the thing that's going to be people's nemesis. The water is going to save you or the water is going to destroy you. And if you can't get out of harm's way, there's another invest whatever circulating out there in the Atlantic. And who knows where the hell that's going to go. I told you guys, if you're on the coast or in Florida, get the hell out. But again, people have to make their choices. But the J world was the catalyst, and it released the demons and activated your immune system, but you couldn't stay on the J juice forever. You had to find a different way to release the demons so you didn't cause extinction to yourself, because these hurricanes and floods will cause some people to be extinct. The new method is in my current book. Veterans of the JJ, no more waterfalls. You don't need them. You don't want to be cured. We are in the days of Noah, and water will be your nemesis and your savior. Do you have the discernment to know the difference? So then, I'm looking at all these, and people are suffering, and I get it. Some of you have a chance to save yourself if you don't take any more of those antibiotics and remedies and all of that. But again, everyone has to determine how far gone they are. And some know, some don't, and I couldn't tell you if you could do what I'm doing. People are so afraid of chemicals in the food supply, but they use that DMSO against their immune system. DMSO, or dimethyl sulfoxide, is a byproduct of paper making. It comes from the substance found in wood. Everything is natural, and it's also a prescription. And I was just like, humanity is lost. In my opinion, I would rather eat food with elements than take something like that in its purest form. I would not want to take anything like this against my immune system. And I also know people are suffering. sometimes things work too well and they stop the suffering forever. They just die. That's what I'm saying. When you're taking antibiotics and surgeries and remedies, you're laying the groundwork for basically a rest in peace. Okay? So this is a sign humanity is suffering extraordinarily. And it's really sad. And that's what I'm saying. It's like sometimes watching people do the things that they're doing right now against their immune system, you know how much they're suffering. And you can't even get mad at them. You really can't. But this is more confirmation for those in the J world and who might have a chance, who have the body, mind, and spirit to do what I'm doing, that they are laying the groundwork and they keep compounding it. At some point, you're going to have to face everything that you ever did to yourself. And do you have the infrastructure in body, mind, and spirit, and in your environment, and in your lifestyle, to be able to face Judgment Day, to be in the hell that you need to be in, so you remember never ever to be in this place ever again. Some of you will figure it out. I don't know. And so then you think about brutality. Oh God, inhumanity, brutality. Okay, so I had a rough childhood. Yes, I know that. Rough. And it was for a reason. Because for every feeling that came up through being raised in the specific way I was raised in, saved my life when I was out there in the world. I remember every feeling of humiliation, every feeling of dis-ease, every feeling of being talked down to, every feeling of sarcasm. And so when you're raised with all of those feelings of predatory behaviors from somebody else, and it's done in a controlled way where it doesn't brutalize you to the point where you turn into a serial killer, when you're out there in the world and you're coming upon those type of people who have been brutalized by their parents, by their friends, by their family, by their community, and now they are cunning, manipulative. They figure out how to look beautiful, like a Ted Bundy, who had so much rage in him, John Wayne Gacy. You now house the memories and the gut feelings, so that when you come upon a predator who's so manipulative, so cunning, your gut tells you something's not right here. And then you start looking for the clues and you get the hell out before you die. See, when you're in a situation where you're like in a controlled combat that has no intention of destroying you and sucking the life out of you, when you think about it, like being raised by people who are doing this kind of programming, you get armed with the information and you don't have the aggressive, horrible outcome. Because eventually you will be faced with those situations. When you're doing combat training in your house through psychological means, you will be faced with some pretty psychological, sadistic, psychotic people in your life. And you have to find a way to survive them and leave and never get into that situation again. There's a reason behind the MK Ultra. It wasn't always just to go and like take somebody's resources and then destroy them. It also helped people survive the world they live in. When you have somebody else over there with a mother or father who is like drugged out of their mind, alcoholic, drug addict, don't know what the hell they're doing, and they're brutalizing their own child. And that child has a coping mechanism. They survive it, but now they're psychopathic, sociopathic, and they find ways to get what they want. And they find the easiest prey, the most oblivious person. And that's how you develop victims in our society, when they're not aware of those kind of predators. You had to be raised by a predator who wasn't going to destroy you. Oh, my mother wasn't a predator. She knew what the fuck she was doing. Oh, she knew what the hell she was doing. And it's a fucking good thing. Because every single thing that I remember being raised by her helped me get out of situations around people who would destroy me if they had the chance. And I got lucky that I didn't get destroyed. And I survived the situation, and I had the pain to remember every single one of them. So for every bad person you read about in politics, religion, and science, there is a good person balancing out the bad. have faith in/humanity. All diamonds go through stress. Remember, only a professional can induce stress. That's why you have to go to see a doctor who's a professional to induce stress, like operations or putting machines in you or on you or around you. And your outcome is relative to your intention, and your intention is relative to the desired outcome. And so if you believe you should die someday and you're only here temporary, then you'll get all your surgeries and your pills and your powders and supplements and detoxes. And then you will brutalize your own system inside, develop all these little babies that will torture you, and then people treat themselves out of existence. And so in humanity, what does that mean? Extremely cruel, brutal behavior, a justification for further cruelty and inhumanity. Cruelty, harshness, brutality. What is the simplest definition of humanity? All humans being collectively, the human race, humankind, the quality or condition of being human, human nature. We only know what we've been told, what humanity should go through and why. And so when you look at people who have never been exposed to some pretty aggressive programming, they will learn the hard way and they may not even survive. So you see these beautiful girls out there, raised in a very homogenized environment. Maybe they get with a guy that will treat them okay. And maybe they don't. Are they even armed with a gut feeling to know if they're walking into danger or not? That's why these girls get brutalized, or there's these serial killers that go and target specific girls, because those girls were never exposed to something that would give them the indicators to fight or flight. They just walk right in and they allow someone to just feed on them until they are backed into a corner. And some might survive it and then never ever get to that position again. Sometimes you have to be in brutality and horrificness for 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, and you survive it, okay, and you fight back, but you don't get out of it. But once you finally do get out of it, you might go into another situation that has an opposite type of situation. They kill you with kindness, but hey, that's better than being killed with brutality, right? I guess if you're supposed to die anyways, how do you want to go? With brutality or with kindness? I guess you're going to have to choose. But then the J world took it a step further. I don't want to be killed with kindness or brutality. I want to fight for my life. I know all the indicators out there. I've experienced them all. And I had to go and survive them all. And now I'm on my own for the most part with my husband. And I'm very careful who it is I invite into my world. Very careful. Because I know humans. Cunning, manipulative. And they're looking to survive at any means necessary, but under some kind of control of the law, that if you do something wrong or bad, there are repercussions that you could be put in jail, and oh God, that's bad. So there you go. And so we live in a complex world. Do your best to attempt to understand what's going on. If you cannot, I'm sorry, you can't. And so then I realized, oh my God, so Carl Jung said, and my mom's a Jungian psychologist, okay? So Jung, she did more the Jung than the Freud. And I understand Jung, the dreams and the interpretations, there's a short-term type of thing versus a long-term like Freud. The Freudian type of way is when you're on your back talking and just doing free speaking. You're just talking and talking about your childhood and sexuality. And so there's a Freudian way of doing stuff. And then there is the Jungian way. And Jung and Freud, they were similar but very different. And so, being raised around a Jungian psychologist versus a Freudian psychologist, because Freudian, then there's like psychiatry, then you had all the medication. And so I knew people that were doing the Freudian psychiatry, not that I was under their care, but I was taking care of one of their kids. He wasn't really nice to me. He didn't like me, and it's fine. And so he was very brutal, very brutal. So I can only imagine what, and I felt the brutality and even his gruffness. So anyways, yeah. So the Jung said that you always become the thing you fight the most. So you better hope that whatever it is you're resisting has really good intention to keep you alive. Because if you're resisting something that is going to destroy you, like resisting the New World Order, who's trying to destroy those who choose to destroy themselves, if you're resisting the New World Order, those of you in the J world, you're going to destroy yourself. Because their intent is to destroy you, but at your own hand. So if you're all about resisting what's going on, you will turn into the very thing that you resist the most. Okay? Understand that, J world. Start looking at how you're doing things and understanding why they're doing what they're doing and know how to explain it. That's my advice to you. I only have so much power. You can only know because you're copying me, but the more that you focus on resisting what's going on doesn't mean you understand me. It just means that you know how to tell me that, yeah, I get it. And I'm fine with that. Because maybe you do, but remember which one has more influence. You resisting the New Order or Jillian saying, okay, you must face your demons. You always become the things that you fight the most. Indubitably, I said. At 49 years old, I figured that out. Now look at who you all resist. What you resist will persist. So I resisted my mother so much that I became her. Doesn't mean I'm going to end up like her. Because I'm going to assimilate to the New World Order and learn how to keep myself alive and get out of harm's way and understand what they're doing. But I became my mother. Not that I'm going to end up like her again, because I have a choice. I know exactly what I'm doing and what has been done. And so now look at who you all resist. What you resist will persist. When you fight your weight, you become the weight. When you fight the aging process, you age progressively and aggressively. When you fight change, you change astronomically. When you try to disappear symptoms, more of them pop up and become more aggressive. When you fight the New World Order, you become it. Okay? And you may end up what they are intending. When you fight another thought process, you become that thought process. The war strategy, the tactic, was to get everybody to resist something. Resistance was the playbook. That was the war strategy. It all makes sense. Whatever you give energy to becomes whatever it is. You become whatever it is. Okay, so remember, I'm watching Breaking Bad again. And I forget his name, but he was the DEA agent that's related to Walter White. And one of the agents that he was working with was saying, remember Sun Tzu? You know, to know thy enemy is to know thyself. If you don't know yourself, you won't know the enemy. Once you understand yourself, then you'll understand the enemy. It's not even the enemy anymore. Remember, you're doing the J world, you're releasing the demons so you can finally survive and evolve. What is the system doing? They're releasing the demons so humanity can survive and evolve. What are you resisting, J world people? Now you have to get out of harm's way. And you have to understand what they're doing. Once you know yourself, you'll understand the enemy. To know your enemy is to know yourself. And there's nothing to resist. Then you assimilate. Whatever you give energy to, you become whatever it is. If you think people are destroying you and the food is destroying you, you will destroy yourself just so you can be right. And you will still go down blaming. When you voluntarily enter a war, you become the casualty until you leave that war. The art of war, to know the enemy, is to know yourself. And you don't have to pick up a single arm. And it's not that China took over. We're like, oh, China took over. No. It's that we borrowed their playbook. No different than the system borrowed the playbook of the Weather Underground, Prairie Fire. The system borrowed this, okay? No different than the whole Rosicrucian order. It's all about borrowing the best parts of every culture relative to the intention. Just to be clear, I'm not fighting against anyone doing what they have to do to end their suffering. I'm just saying you can end your aggressive suffering without dying someday, but you need all food. Engineering a proper support system. Because in reality, I like humans. Not all humans like me, so why am I invested in people who don't give a damn about me? I already saved myself, right? But there are still parts of me I'm still speaking to, and I don't mind sharing the wealth. I'm not greedy. My mind is for the world to share because the world has shared so much with me. And so I'm just giving back. By the way, death comes from resistance to life. Everything that you resist, even if it's not in your vicinity, even a belief system will destroy you. Obsession has always destroyed people. Fixation on resisting anything you think is deadly becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. War is psychological, and there are so many battlefronts. It's not always in the open field. Guerrilla warfare does not discriminate. It's like a game of chess, okay? It's all strategy, and there are rules for every single player, and the rules are different for each player. And so I just realized today that Landmark Worldwide was was a branch of the Rosicrucian order. Their playbook was also borrowing from all the different cultures and spiritual beliefs. And they compiled all the different concepts to develop their seminars. And it was unique. It still is unique, but also the same. All self-help is a compilation of the best parts of each culture. Everything is relative to intention. Best is relative to your purpose. And every self-help group have different purposes and intentions. But what the difference is in my world, you had to release the demons without compromising your immune system. Or else it was just another temporary thing, another temporary fad. Fads are a dime a dozen, and they don't last long. And they're like a drug. They're addicting, and you still die anyways. So what was the point? Some would say the point was to have a great life. Great life is relative. When you're in search for the best life ever, it's like chasing the dragon. You will sell your soul to keep the great life until you can't keep it anymore. When you're obsessed with having the great life, your great life will destroy you. So what is the meaning of life? There is no universal meaning to life. You live and you develop the meaning every single day, and it can always change. Okay? And so realize that even some of the past politicians didn't understand the bigger picture. Or maybe they just put out certain memes and thoughts that made you think, but could have also radicalized you into something or radicalized you against something. You don't know who or what is all part of it. You're just reacting to what sounds interesting and good. But you always have to even check your belief system around that and what kind of meaning you put around what someone said, even in the past and the present and the future. You always have to question yourself. Every single time you learn something new, question even what you think is what they're saying. That's how you're going to evolve, and you even question every single thing that you learned even yesterday. And so you can have an amazing life with almost nothing. Material wealth is not the meaning of life. It's an obsession, compulsion. Okay, so I know that John was like, oh, I like Jason's boat. Oh yeah, Jason and I were very different. Okay, I came from upper middle class, had access to a lot of stuff. Not that I really could. It wasn't mine. It was my parents. It was my parents' life. It wasn't my life. Okay. And so I'm not materialistic. I don't need a bunch. I could live so simply and so minimally on almost nothing. I've never had an attachment to things. I don't need the best of everything. Jason wants the best of everything. But of course, he can only have the best of everything according to what he can afford. And so he wants the best. He wants the best boat. He wants the best truck. Okay, he can afford it. Have it. But I think differently. I don't have to have a car. I have delivery services. I just need a computer that runs, a phone that works, and I have my brain. And I don't even need a boat. I could go fishing off the side of a river and be happy. He wants to be in a boat and travel around. Okay, fine. That's his choice. Okay? And so that's why he can afford his boat, because I don't have material desires. I don't need to go on I've done all the trips. I've been all over the world. I've seen so much stuff. I've experienced so much stuff. We got into the trucking world. He makes okay money to support his lifestyle. And if he has hobbies, he'll have to choose which one. He put a lot of money in the CB radio world. Fine. Now he's putting money into his boat. That's fine. He can afford it, and I can still eat. Okay, so but but he has to be able to afford his lifestyle. And since we're married, we have division of labor. We have certain things. But I don't make him work any harder than he has to support whatever desires. So if I have a bunch of desires, like collecting baubles and gadgets and trips and whatever, then I'd have to work extra. But what he makes, and with his hobbies, we can afford to have this type of lifestyle. And he doesn't have to work as hard if he wanted to cut down his lifestyle. Because remember, I don't have to eat as much as I don't go out to dinner all the time. We don't buy pizza all the time. I could eat simple foods that are complex and still be very fulfilled. Okay? And so you can have an amazing life with almost nothing. Material wealth is not the meaning of life. It's an obsession. It's a compulsion. It's an addiction. I gotta pee. I'm gonna get to this last part and I gotta pee. And so remember that Alice in Wonderland, I read Alice in Wonderland through the looking glass and all that. And so all of us on Facebook are a mirror to each other. And so through the looking glass, the things that people don't tell you. You take an antibiotic against your life, you develop offspring. You have now compounded the problem. On top of that, you also develop allergies from that. Because now the body is armed with all those offspring who are going to attack any kind of nutritional benefit with any of these proteins, with all of those different remedies that are made from food. Okay? And so it's like programming your kid to attack its own family. Taking antibiotics against your body is like abusing your children. Teaching your kids to take ABX is teaching your child to attack itself. Natural or synthetic. What's the difference between eating these types of foods, sprinkling them in your meal, seasoning your food, versus abusing these types of foods? The difference is how much you're using and what it's mixed with and what your intention is. Many of these home remedies are mixed with very aggressive, influential elements that are byproducts of industrial-grade solvents that you wouldn't dare put in your food, and you have accused the system of putting that stuff in your food, and they don't. And if they do, it's very little. The appropriate parts per million for the intent. But the people who have issues with disease put these types of aggressive elements in their body against their immune system. And they have the nerve to say the system is poisoning them. Really? That's why you believe you should die someday and you're okay with that, aging out. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Everything below, which was showing you the ginger and the honey and the apple cider and all that stuff, right? Everything below is okay by itself with the intent for it to season. But we have many alchemists out there who mix so many different aggressive ingredients together with the intent to take away your pain and mucus. And they sell it to your friends and family. And then you give that to your child. You administer these aggressive concoctions to your own child. And you have the nerve to say the system is poisoning you. Wake up, humans. Now you know why where some of the spirituality comes from. When you have different life forms in your body talking to you, and then you play with drugs on top of that, people get these spiritual awakenings because they're talking to little demons in their body, and they are conscious. And they come from all of your remedies and alchemy. When you do those psychedelics and ayahuasca, even cannabis, you develop little conscious beings that run your immune system and even change your view on the world. Even alcohol, they bring up the spirits in you as well. Those are the demons people hold inside. That's what talks to them in their sleep. When people meditate, they talk to those little conscious beings inside their body, and they are a bitch to get out. And I have been releasing them the last 3 years. I'll tell you, when I was coughing and sneezing and blowing my nose a couple of years ago in the dark, and I would see weird spirits and weird conscious things, and you saw the little orbs that were running around me during the different frequency changes, and you saw my face would change, and I'd get bloated or bigger or something else. I mean, you saw how those little conscious beings that I have accumulated from all the holistic stuff, from all the medical stuff for the last 49 years, it was all coming out. It was coming to surface, and you saw it morph my body, mind, and spirit, my face, my ideas, the way it even inflected. And they are a bitch to get out. And I have been releasing them the last 3 years. I would not dare ever to see any alchemist or medical professional because they develop more demons. That's why you detected the intolerance, my intolerance to holistic people, but they don't know any better. And many of them are too far gone. That's why we're in a great reset. And I had enough of them in me already. I had enough demons in me already. I was not going to conjure up anymore or develop anymore. What I had was enough. That's what's messing you all up. That's why you're all suffering, because you have so many offspring in your body and they are torturing you. And some of you have them in your household torturing you the fuck out of you. But you wouldn't call your children that, right? As far as the offspring in your body, when they multiply, that's why people die. They can't handle the diversity in their body because it cannibalizes their whole infrastructure. That's why you live around so many religions. The system had to account for every single diversity that was developed through alchemy. And you couldn't tell somebody they were wrong because that's who they are. They developed their own demons. And it's the government's responsibility to keep the demons under control. And you see what a hell of a time they're having doing that. My world attempted to help you exorcise those demons out of your body, and it's a bitch of a process. So remember, those of you who are recommending iodine and supplements to your friends, you're just developing more demons in your friends to be tortured by when they leave this earth. And sometimes those demons turn into offspring, your child. That's why there's so many movies around children who kill and destroy, like The Bad Seed, Children of the Corn, The Village of the Damned. You're living every single story out there, and every single fairy tale out there is about you and the world you live in through the looking glass. Okay? So, yeah. And so that's why we're going into a new world. That's why we're going into a great reset. And so I would hope that some of you in the J world now understand why the system is doing what it's doing, and to embrace that change and to understand how to survive it. Some of us may not survive it, but you have to understand why they're doing what they're doing. Okay? There's some pretty predatory people out there who have done so many horrible things, and we don't want that in the future. And now you have to strategize how to survive what's going on. You have to strategize it and understand why they're going after Russell Brand, why they went after Andrew Tate. And they're like, oh, but they're exposing, what are they exposing? They're exposing their perception of what the remedies have done. But when you look at your natural remedies and they are countering you, they are the offspring. Well, the remedies that you're taking develop offspring and the little demons inside that develop fertility, okay? It's no different than what the system is doing with all the different V's. It's just developing offspring that you already want to develop anyways. So some people didn't have, who knows why people take these things and whatever. But no matter if you take a V through the FDA approval process or you take a natural remedy, you're still developing offsprings that you're going to have to manage and deal with and control. And if you can't control it, then you get oncology. And sometimes oncology turns into CERN and HARP and Wi-Fi. Sometimes oncology turns into radiation and other types of aggressive methods in radiology in the hospital. Okay? And so no, Russell Brand isn't exposing government corruption. He's just misplacing his anger from whatever he had to go through in this world. And he didn't understand because no one has understood really fully the big picture because they've been too compartmentalized. Now you're given all the information. Okay? So no, I'm not taking up for Russell Brand or Andrew Tate or any of these people out there. We're all trying to figure out what's going on. Some of us will go and look at where we went wrong. Because again, those in glass houses shall not cast stones. So if you're resisting me and resisting the government and the system and the New World Order, why don't you take a look in your own background and what you have contributed to in this world and supported? Where did you go wrong in whatever you did? Can you own up to that before you go and demonize the government? But if you don't look at taking herbs and extracts and having a bunch of kids as anything against what the system is trying to do or whatever, if you can't see that maybe you were misled and led astray from your parents or whoever else, and figure out where you went wrong somewhere, if you can't, then you have no business resisting the government. No fucking business. Are you honorable in your intentions, people out there, even in the J world? Are you honorable about your intentions? You'll figure it out. But now you see why we are where we are. Now you see why the system waited for him to mess up. Because he would. They knew anti-government people would come out there again eventually. Because they didn't understand what was going on. And how do you tell cultures of people who have practiced alchemy for years, they were developing demons in our society? How do you tell them? You can't genocide them. You have to show them what they've done. And you can't make choices for them because they'll blame you. And say, you were the cause of my this, and that. No, you chose. You chose not to understand. And how do you talk to people who have a fucking brick wall in their brain? You can't. You saw how I try to talk to so many people about what I'm doing, and they still don't believe that, oh, you're bad, you're this, you're nuts. No matter how many times I try to say it in so many ways possible, even apologizing for how I may have came off, that was never my intent to come off in the ways I did, they don't want to ever hear me. They want to turn me into a demon. No different than some of you want to turn the government into a demon. And if that is your intent, to demonize somebody else and never take personal responsibility, then you'll end up exactly like those you are resisting. The outcome will be your intention, because who you resist the most will be who you turn into, and maybe who you end up with that intention. And so I just ask you guys, those of you who are resisting the government, I dare you to finally say, I understand what the government's doing. I understand what the New World Order is doing, and I embrace it. I think it's fucking awesome. And I hope I survive it. And I'll do everything I can to survive it. I dare all of you in the J world who are still resisting the government to finally pull back and take a look at what you have done. Because again, those in glass houses shall not cast stones. I've spent 7 years figuring out where I went wrong, why things happened the way they happened, and I had no intention, and I don't want to destroy anyone in the process mischaracterizing something. I have no proof of certain things that I speculate. But even then, my society was already very sexualized, already very predatory. And so when you think about that, then you have to realize where you have responsibility to survive this and release those fucking demons and stop resisting everything out there and stop demonizing and take personal fucking accountability. And if you can't, you will resist the government, you will resist your friends, your family, everyone's the opposite of you. You won't expose things for what they are, but you'll find a way to resist and you'll collect followers. And I get it. I understand. It's so hard to release those demons. And some of those demons are like, you feel like you're part of something when you're exposing. Oh, but I've earned it because I'm also helping. Not necessarily. Are you really helping those that are exposing everything to help themselves? Are you giving them any way to finally say, okay, I got to pay attention to myself. I could survive this if I strategize. Or are you just enabling them to go destroy themselves by not giving them the opportunity? That's still my J world. I see it. I know who you entertain. I know what you entertain and what you're trying to expose for whatever reason. It's not going to make a fucking difference. You can't stop it. So how are you going to fucking survive it? Bye.